Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 2021 My Team Career Mode, episode number 73 today for the beginning of season number 5. If you guys missed the pre-season episode uploaded 2 days ago, then be sure to check that video out because that will give you the full rundown of this entire season going into round 1 at the Bahrain Grand Prix. All the driver transfers going to this season, the big news of Porsche and Jaguar joining the F1 grid. Porsche with a collaboration with ourselves as we become aarava Porsche Formula 1 team, and Jaguar sponsoring Williams. And on top of that, obviously the very exciting news that we have signed Charles Leclerc alongside us, stealing him away from Ferrari. He's now 100 rated, over 92 focus. I think a lot of you guys are excited to see what Leclerc could do in our machinery, and you know, Ferrari haven't delivered him a car yet in this career series to fight for a world championship. Could this be the season where we give him a car to do just that? And of course now it's been 2 seasons on the bounce that we have not won the Drivers' World Championship. As a team, we've won 3 Constructors' Championships in a row from season 2, 3 to 4, but we've only won 1 World Drivers' Championship in season 2, and after the way the very close season 4 finale ended, I am so hungry to win a world championship again. But it's going to be very tough out there. We have a very strong grid for this season. Pierre Gasly, 93 rated, over 90 focus. Lando Norris and his new teammate, George Russell, very highly focused. Valtteri Bottas in the now Jaguar Williams, over 90 focus, highly rated as well still. Verstappen in the Mercedes, the new Ferrari pairing, Ricciardo and Sainz. Giovinazzi, 83 rated. He's actually the kind of #1 driver in a way in terms of stats in the new Red Bull team alongside Mick Schumacher. And once again, was like the case last season, most of the teams are nearly at maxed out performance on the R&D chart. So that means, for one, it's going to be very track to track dependent. You know, certain cars and teams have better characteristics for certain circuits, just like in real life. And then also, this year, more than ever, it was obviously a case on last year's game as well, with the kind of momentum that we talked about, but on this year we have a tangible stat of that momentum, which is obviously the focus stat, and it's going to come down to who are the most focused drivers that get the most potential out of their actual performance stat. And visually, obviously, this season's going to be very exciting because a lot of the cars are looking very different. You know, we've got a bit more of a midfield looking Mercedes team, still got that lovely Infinity retro throwback livery for the Red Bull outfit with Giovinazzi in the cockpit, so my driver vibes there. Obviously AlphaTauri looking a lot more professional and Red Bull like. We've still got the iconic Golf looking livery for McLaren, and then we have Ferrari back in the red and white with Santander, with Ricciardo, that rumoured transfer years ago, a reality now here alongside the Spaniard Carlos Sainz. And then of course we have Jaguar in the sport on the Williams car, and Porsche obviously with our own outfit, so that's going to be massively exciting. And then you've got to add on top of that just the randomness that sometimes can come with the F1 game and the career mode we've seen on this year's game. You know, you can't really call it in terms of the form guide anymore when the cars are so close and it's all dependent on driver focus, because you've also got factors like simulation damage obviously coming in. And also going into this season as well, we as a team, myself as a driver, we have something else to contend with, which is a brand new power unit in the back of the car. You'll hear audibly it is very different to what we had last season, and it's not only audibly different, the drivability of the power unit we've got for this season is very different and a bit difficult, I'm not gonna lie. It's gonna maybe take a few races for my right foot to adjust to it. It's very peaky on the throttle. The rear end is so much more sensitive on the power delivery, with I think the way the turbo delivers the power and the way the engine winds up, and the engine braking as well, I feel is a bit different because I'm feeling a lot less emphasis on the front end, and I'm feeling even less confidence on the braking than I was last season, which was already one of my biggest flaws I think on this game, is the AI are so much better than me on the brakes on this year's game compared to previous F1 games. I just haven't still found the confidence under braking to really slam on the brakes and not lock up and, lift off at the right time to not lock up that front axle. And the rear end now on this season, it's even more peaky. So that was at least one thing I had going for me last season, was I felt I had quite a stable rear end, and I was quite confident in getting on the power early. Whereas now, with this power unit for Season 5, I'm not as confident. I'm having to second guess when I can get on full throttle. But obviously, as always, we'll try and endeavour and try and do our best and, try and maybe dance the car around and kind of wrestle the car, get it by the scruff of the neck, and try and get the time out, and that's exactly what you're about to see here in Q2. Literally drifting through, going opposite lock and finding some time, in fact, actually through that right-hander as we go for a second flyer in Q2. Q1 was a formality, Q2 not so much. We're down in P6 and it's so close, literally 1/10 was separating us from P6 to the drop zone, so we had to go again to be confident we'd make it through, but we do thankfully make it through, and Leclerc does as well. So our car seemingly does have some good pace here, but obviously Q3 will be the real big factor, and then the race pace, well, no one knows about that, but interesting. Both Williams are through. Look at Guan Yu Zhou into this season. Looks like Guan Yu Zhou's stats have been bumped up, actually, because he's actually a lot closer to Bottas than he ever was last season. Giovinazzi out-qualifying Schumacher massively in the top 10. Lando Norris gets through. George Russell and his new team, his first race for McLaren, he's knocked out P11, but that may be one of the best places to be for the race tomorrow at Bahrain. Both Mercedes are out before Q3, kind of showing their kind of more midfield nature, but Verstappen will be looking to try and come back in the race, I'm sure. We saw last season he won a race in that Mercedes, so I'm sure he'll find some way to drag the car up this season. And another disappointing one will be Ricciardo, who is knocked out compared to Carlos Sainz and the other Ferrari, who does make it through. And then both AlphaTauris again through into the top 10 shootout, showing that there's still going to be a force to be reckoned with maybe this season. But now it is showtime. It's the top 10 shootout. But because we used 2 sets of soft tyres in Q2 to get through into this session, we only have 1 run in Q3, and this is that run. The session timer is going to end. The checkered flag's going to fall. We've set a purple first sector, but we're still having to wrestle the car through. You saw there, little bit unsettled on the curb and having to kind of catch the car midway through that downhill section as we go through the last bend. Hard to tell where we're going to be because we set 1 time on old tyres on the first run. 1.1 improved from the first run, but it's only good enough for P6. Of course, the first run essentially was an on old set just to get a bit of a banker lap in and a reference point for my second lap, and unfortunately 1.1 seconds was still not enough to get close to my teammate Leclerc, who is on the second row and beats me in the first qualifying session here for aarava Porsche Formula 1, this new era of our team. But look at that, this Spaniard Carlos Sainz and the duo partnership Carl Lando on the front row. Sainz though showing Ferrari has some pace this season. Could this be a season for Ferrari finally in the career mode when they're back in red and white? Norris though showing that McLaren clearly have some pace, and Russell actually a bit of a horrendous qualifying for him to be knocked out in P11 when he's on the front row alongside Ferrari. Williams still up there, P4 with Bottas, AlphaTauri as well, and of course we can't get rid of Pierre Gasly. We're on the same row as him for this first race, and then in the end Schumacher does assert himself as still the kind of team leader de facto versus Giovinazzi, obviously having been there at the team for 1 season longer. He beats the Italian eventually in this top 10 shootout. But this is a very interesting grid. I honestly didn't think Sainz would actually get pole position. I didn't think Lando would be that far up either, and Leclerc's done very well to be there in P3, so this is going to be, well, a peculiar one, because Bahrain always is very interesting because of this split of strategy of a 2-stop v the 1. So let's go to the grid sequence and see how we do.
No more testing, no more practice. This is the real deal, and it's make or break here at round 1 of this year's Formula 1 World Championship. We go racing today around 3.36 miles of the magnificent Bahrain International Circuit, with 15 corners and 2 good passing opportunities into turns 1 and 4. Keep an eye out for drivers locking the front left tyre into the tricky braking zone of turn 10. A new season then, a clean slate where anything could happen. Anthony Davidson is with me today as we get another year of Formula One underway.
We're into those tense few minutes before the first race then. Everyone's a little bit nervous about reliability. They haven't been running in the hot, turbulent wake of other cars in practice, and they've not been pushing at 100% for long durations. Let's hope no one has to deal with any nasty surprises.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. An immense lap from Carlos Sainz yesterday puts him in pole position, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Looking down the rest of the grid we have Leclerc, Bottas, Pierre Gasly, the owner driver, Mick Schumacher, Giovinazzi, Joe and George Russell, Verstappen, Mazepin, Lance Stroll and Ricciardo, Ocon, Hamilton, Callum Eilert and Yuki Tsunoda, Aitken, Latifi, Lundgaard and Nobuharu Matsushita. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today?
Well, it's time to find out who's got it right and who's got it wrong over the winter break into Season 5. And as always with the F1 game, especially this one at Bahrain for round 1, it's also going to be interesting of who can maybe surprise us with that one-stop strategy. We know how, kind of in a way, overpowered it can be around Turkey. It's kind of almost in a way why this is a great venue for round 1, because it leaves us still with massive question marks leaving this first race going into the rest of the season, because the true pace of the cars doesn't really matter that much around here if you can make that one stop work, if you can make those tyres go the distance, because the advantage you may have for making one less stop could be massive around here depending on how much the tyre wears out for the two stoppers, if there's a safety car as well. So it's always a fun first race because there is that kind of jeopardy, and also of course there's jeopardy in the reliability. Will there be failures? We had an issue ourselves here in Season 4 where we got, the win taken away from us in the last dying laps because of an ERS issue. So will that occur for other drivers today? Hopefully won't occur for us, but we've not had great luck around Bahrain. We had an ERS issue last season and we had a total DNF in Season 2, remember? So I'm hoping Season 5 we can have smooth sailing and just try and, get to grips with this car over a race distance, try and get used to that throttle and see what we can do in the first outing. And with that said, it's time to get going for Season 5 as you go to 5 red lights. The Bahrain Grand Prix, the lights on for an age, but now you blink and they're out and we're underway. It's a good start for Carlos Sainz from pole position, defending against Lando Norris. Leclerc there trying to get up into P2 and going for the lead maybe. Guan Yu Zhou with a big dive bomb down our inside. We're down one position and Sainz successfully defends for P1. Leclerc though up into P2. Can we try and overtake Schumacher? We got overtaken by the German whilst Guan Yu Zhou was making a kamikaze dive and cutting the curb, and he's up into P5 now. We're back up into P7, but the Chinese driver going for hell into turn 1 and now holding up here Gasly. Gasly going slow to the hairpin. Can we go around the outside? No, Gasly instead goes down the inside of the Williams and makes an overtake up into P5. I think the Williams has damage having cut the curb. I think he may have some front wing damage as he made contact into the exit. So can we try and overtake him? And he will be making probably an early pit stop now, I would imagine. So no luck there for Guan Yu Zhou early on. But yeah, Gasly up into P5, then Norris down to P4 as he is overtaken by both Bottas and Leclerc. So not a great start for the Brit from the front row, but Sainz, what a great start for him. Defended successfully against two cars and was able to maintain his race lead. But the two former teammates then are 1-2. Sainz still in the Ferrari, Leclerc in his new surroundings in our team, aarava Porsche Formula 1 team. But can he go chasing after his former teammate and try and spoil the party? It looks like Bottas, though, to be honest, is maybe more likely to make an overtake on him as the Williams Jaguar car is very, very close behind him in P3. Meanwhile, we have overtaken Guan Yu Zhou because he has made an early pit stop as we watch on Giovinazzi overtake Schumacher and show him that he's going to have a fight this season in the Red Bull there. The Italian in his new car up into P7. And look at George Russell there in the McLaren looking to overtake Schumacher. Russell, remember, not knocked out in Q2, so he's the highest runner right now on the mediums, and right behind is Verstappen also on the medium tyre. These two, they'll be looking to do the one stop from medium to hards, and well, if they have the race pace, they should be in a really good position. The same for Ricciardo as well. P12, he's made up some good places in the Ferrari. You know, Ricciardo, he's on the one stop, and his teammates showing that his car has the pace to be on pole position and be leading the race. So, to be honest, Ricciardo, out of anyone, has the strongest chance in a funny way to actually come back through and maybe challenge for the race win today. Such is the very weird and unique nature of how the strategies play out here around Sakir. Meanwhile, now lap number 3, then Bottas looking to make the move that I said was maybe likely to happen. Round the outside, the Williams tries to get Leclerc. Leclerc defends successfully and just about maintains P2 for now. That invites Norris to maybe come through. Bottas tries again. Round the outside, Leclerc v Bottas. This is a really great scrap between the two new-looking teams here. It's Porsche v Jaguar. It's aarava Archer Racing versus Williams in a way. And Leclerc just about maintaining P2, but they've lost so much time fighting each other that now it's becoming a 5-car train. Leclerc all the way down to myself, both bookended by our cars. Gasly, Norris and Bottas in the middle. Norris making a move on Bottas now. Can we make a move on Gasly? On the outside, easy does it. Roll the car through. Try and get on the power. A little bit of a twitch of oversteer as we still come to terms with the rear end of this car and the way the power winds up as we open DRS though. We're going to squeeze Gasly a little bit to the right to make the move up into P4. Bottas, meanwhile, has made a pit stop as we try and defend against Gasly. We have to brake late, almost make contact with Norris, and only just maintain the P5 there as we are still coming to terms with the braking as well. And you're seeing a great example of that as we have a horrendous lock-up on the front left there. We just can't get the car slowed down and rotated well. And now Gasly has a look on the inside. We squeeze him in. We're going to go for the switchback in a way from right to left, go underneath him, back onto the racing line and get back up into P5. But you can see having to lift off there, the tyres are going off. Bottas pit on the previous lap. He maybe was onto something because I reckon we'll come in now as well. So Bottas, I feel, may have got some damage even from the fight with Leclerc and Norris, and that's why he made the pit stop, because that's quite an early stop for AI, but we're coming in the very next lap. So to be honest, Bottas may have made the correct call because these tyres are going off. Gasly doesn't come in, but I think it's time because I was struggling to get the front turned in, even so much so that I was actually worried there was front wing damage. As we come into the pit lane, there is no front wing change, so we don't have damage. It was literally just the tyres being so bad on the front that I just couldn't get the car turned in as much as I wanted to, and that's maybe why we had such a bad lockup as well down in Sector 2. So we make the pit stop onto medium tyres. Bottas and Guan Yu Zhou, both Williams, having to make early stops, but ironically, that may actually be an advantage for them, as Bottas has been in clean air and Guan Yu Zhou behind him has been using his DRS, so they can both try and push each other to go further as we now try and close up to Mashasita and the Haas, and we're having issues on the rear. These are fresh tyres, and we're having that oversteer moment, so the heavy fuel being a factor as well, but we really need to try and learn how to adjust our throttle management quickly in this season. We want to try and get the maximum out of this car ASAP, basically, but we press on then with clean air on the end of lap 8 into 9. Giovinazzi, oh no, what a horrendous debut for him in Red Bull, and will Red Bull's reliability come back to haunt them again this season, as the Italian Gio in the Red Bull out in his first race for the team? That is such a shame, because he was ahead of Schumacher. He was doing well. He was leading the Red Bull charge in this race. So that's so unfortunate of him. Very hard luck, and well, it's going to be tough times for Red Bull maybe again if they continue to have those issues throughout the season. We saw Schumacher, remember, had 6 DNFs last season. 6, which is crazy in a season that's only 16 races long. Meanwhile, you can see clearly there, we came out behind Leclerc and Norris, but we're a lot closer to Leclerc than we were before, and Norris has jumped Leclerc in the pit stops there. Meanwhile, you've got Russell, who leads the race now. Verstappen Verstappen and Ricciardo in P2 and 3 respectively. Now, these guys, like I said before, on the one stop, so that's why they're leading right now. They're yet to pit, but they will eventually for the hard compound tire, I imagine, and then they'll go to the end of the Grand Prix. So your previous race leader is Carlos Sainz in P9 there. Lando, myself, Leclerc, Bottas, Guan Yu Zhou, Schumacher, Gasly, all of us on the 2-stop that we qualified into the top 10. So that's why we're down the order at the moment, but we'll be looking to try and make our way through this traffic, but it's going to be harder for me to do that because my DRS has broken. Honestly, at this point, this is the new iconic duo, me and rear wing failures, because it's becoming a bit of a joke now how many rear wing failures we're having. Like the back end of last season, we had so many moments in the race weekend, either in practice, quali, or the race, where my DRS would either, you know, fail whilst it was closed, so I can't open it, or worse so, it failed and it stayed open at Abu Dhabi in the finale race. So I don't know what's going on. There's no way to, you know, do reliability of your rear wing on the R&D or anything like that, so I don't know what's going on here. Just the F1 game hates me at the moment in terms of the rear wing. We're still going to try and make an overtake though on Leclerc, because in the corners, you know, that doesn't affect anything there, and Leclerc not making the most of his new tyres. I wonder if he's trying to protect his tyres right now. Either way, I want to try and press on, but look at that, the advantage Leclerc has with the DRS open. He's able to stay ahead, but we're going to try and lunge him into turn one. Our brand new teammate try and go toe-to-toe with him in the first race and try and assert some sort of dominance in terms of who is going to be the #1 driver this season. But of course, right now it's all equal, you know, but we want to get the early advantage and try and see what we can do. And I feel like at the moment Leclerc is saving tyres, whereas I want to move on, because I know at Bahrain it's not about saving tyres, especially on the 2-stop. It's about making the move when it counts, just like this on ILOT. Big late lunge, get the job done, because we can't waste time with this 2-stop versus the very overpowered 1-stop. It's all about trying to go like the absolute clappers and trying to make up that time using your tyre, because you have a whole pit stop to make up, you know, without a safety car. Obviously, there's still maybe one later on that could help us out, but if not, we have to make up the ground on these tyres. But you're really seeing the effects of not having DRS here, as the Alfa Romeo, the new look Alfa Romeo, Aitken, he's able to actually go toe-to-toe with us in a straight line drag race there, because he had DRS available to him. So that was you know, frustrating, but we got the job done anyway into turn 1, because obviously under braking I've still got the better car than Aitken, but it's just you know, making life a little bit harder, just like this now as we close up to Norris. Have a little look on the outside. Oh, this may be a really nice move as we try and have a look around the outside, but Norris moving left, and we have to try and take avoiding action. We go off circuit and overtake him. We've overtaken him off circuit, so I let him back through because I think that was a bit unfair. The game didn't penalise me there, but I definitely overtook him off circuit, but I only did that because he moved a bit left there. I think his rear end twitched and was almost going to make contact with me on the right hand side, so in order to, you know, avoid that, we had to go off circuit, but in doing so I actually gained an advantage. So trying to play as fair as I can with these guys. We make the move on, well, Bottas makes the move on me. We tried to re-overtake Jack Aitken because he overtook me in that whole debacle, and we have to go and make the move to re-overtake him, but Bottas is through. He's up into P10, so just like that, the Williams is in this fight with myself and Norris, and that all stemmed for trying to make that overtake, ironically, on the McLaren. But the good bit of news is, in that fight, whilst Bottas dive bombed us, literally as we entered the brake zone, you may have seen my DRS came back online. So now we've got DRS back in the fight, so now we won't be at such a disadvantage in a straight line as we see Latifi come in for his first pit stop of the afternoon as Bottas makes the move on Norris. Can we make the move on the sparky McLaren on the outside? Oh, Lando with a big lockup, and he actually goes to re-overtake Bottas in the end. McLaren v Williams. Good fight there from Lando, but he's slow. He slows them both up, and now we've got a good run on Bottas. We've got Lando. Can we get Valtteri on the outside? The long way round. Bottas really defending hard, and the rear end steps out. The rear end squirms away from us, and Lando dives back down the inside. We're going to defend against him instead of attacking the Williams. That was so frustrating. We nearly had it. Nearly had the move, but it just wasn't meant to be. The rear end just didn't give me the grip I needed. Meanwhile, though, Leclerc makes a banging overtake on Lando Norris there on the outside of the hairpin. What a move there by our new teammate, and he's up into P5. Very tasty move there. Lando went from overtaking me to being overtaken by the same car, just with a different number on the front there. Number 16 up into P5 as we all, along with Carlos Sainz there, try and chase after Verstappen and basically just try and bridge the gap as much as we can to Russell, who is in P7. He's only, just behind Norris. So that's how powerful the one stop is going to be as Verstappen finally comes in for his one and only stop. Lap 17 then, though, Bottas has come in for his second pit stop. We continue on, but up the road, Sainz is slow.
Okay, some information on Sainz. They're slowing down. It seems like there's some kind of problem with their car.
So the race leader has some sort of mechanical issue and he's lost his entire race lead to myself. And in clean air, we've been going well, not fighting anyone, just getting our head down, and we are here now within half a second of the Ferrari, and he is looking very vulnerable indeed, and this will be for the race lead, and this will be for the lead of the two stoppers. This will be very important to get clean air to help us chase after those one stoppers of Russell, Verstappen, Ricciardo in the other Ferrari. So one Ferrari may be faltering, but Ricciardo will still be in a good position, but this is a nightmare for Sainz. He was on pole position, and not only is it he is at a disadvantage of being on the two stop, he's now got a car issue will slow him up. So this is just a calamity for him, really. He's going to be kicking himself in the cockpit. He's going to be so annoyed with the team in a way as we go sailing around the outside with ease with DRS, and he's already looking so slow as he backs up into Leclerc. We come in straight away though for our second pit stop then, lap number 19. 10 laps then on another set of medium tyres, and we're just going to go as quickly as we can to try and make up the time. You can see there Leclerc still in P1, Russell though P2, Verstappen, Ricciardo, they'll be in a prime position. One interesting thing to note though is Bottas, who pit a little bit earlier than us, he's actually jumped us here. He's in P10. He's on the hard compounder tyre though, so Bottas and Williams not thinking the medium is the better tyre to be on for this end part, which is odd because obviously he's on the same compound as Russell, Verstappen and Ricciardo, yet he's only going on these tyres for about 10, 12 laps here. So they're thinking the tyre wear's that bad on the hards that'll be an issue for us on the mediums, I guess. But there is George Russell then in his new digs in McLaren up in P1. Ricciardo has jumped Verstappen then. We missed the overtake at some point, but Ricciardo in the Ferrari is in P2. Now, like I said, this is the same car that got pole position. So I think if Ricciardo gets his head down, he should be able to try and chase after Russell for the race lead. But it looks like Verstappen is closer to re-overtaking him than he is to closing up to Russell because he's outside the 1 second window. Verstappen is very much in the 1 second window, and the Mercedes is getting ever closer in P3. Meanwhile, you've got the likes of Stroll in P4, Hamilton 5, Ocon 6, all those three guys also on the one stop. So P1 down to P5 is on the one stop. It was P6, but Bottas has literally just now, as we talk about it, overtaken Ocon there, and he's up into P6. So Bottas is the leader of the two stoppers, trying to make a charge at the end of this race to try and get back up into those positions we were in just a moment ago. And the big question is going to be about the tyre wear for those one stoppers. Meanwhile, Sainz, look at how far down the order he is. P12, following that mechanical issue. He's going to be so annoyed with himself as we cut onto, oh no, what's happening here? Ricciardo, it's disaster for Ferrari as his engine is smoking. It's an absolute calamity for the Scuderia as Ricciardo parks up on the left-hand side in Sector 2 and he's out of the Bahrain Grand Prix. What a disaster for Ferrari. Is there going to be an actual season where they get their act together and are actually there to use their pace? Because they clearly have a quick car. Sainz was on pole, but they both had reliability issues. But that's the beauty of Formula 1. That's what's the beauty of a new season. There's unreliability. The first few races, always a bit tricky after a regulation change. And there you go, Ferrari and Red Bull, two of the, quote-unquote, older top teams, both being hit. And it means Russell and Verstappen are 1-2 now in this race. And the McLaren and Mercedes as we overtake Ocon then up into P6. And we're trying to keep up with Bottas and actually catch up to Bottas because, obviously we should actually have the better race pace right now because we're on mediums versus his hards. But the question is, will our mediums start to wear away before we catch up to him? Because there's a reason why Bottas has chosen the hards, and I suspect it's because he thinks my mediums will wear out too much by the end of this Grand Prix as he goes to overtake Lewis Hamilton, the two former Mercedes teammates now, and Bottas in the much quicker Williams these days overtakes him. We're going to make a move on Hamilton as well on the inside, roll the car through, easy does it. Don't want to make anything too rash and hit the back of Bottas whilst we try and go too late on the brakes, but we make a clean overtake on Hamilton into P5, and we're now within 1 second of Bottas. Surely we're going to be able to make a move. We've got 7 laps left of this Grand Prix, and the mediums are still not wearing out too much at the moment, so we've got to make the most of it before they do. But Bottas continues to just try and put a car between us two as he overtakes Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. Can we make a move on the Canadian? Oh my god, we get that all wrong and crossed up and just about keep the car on the black stuff there on the tarmac as I was trying to make a move to the inside, but then last minute I thought, oh no, the racing line may be better to get round the outside and get to the inside of turn 2. But as I did it, Stroll started to brake a bit earlier than I anticipated, and we narrowly missed his rear end there. I had to basically go nearly off circuit to miss him, and we almost hit the brake board, so narrowly missing out on some contact there, and life before me flashed before my eyes. But now we have to try and be patient and make the move now elsewhere. But the thing is, even the Aston Martin now, it may not be a top car, it may not be right in the fight, but all the cars are getting better and better and closer together. It means now an overtake on Stroll is not a guaranteed, easy thing as he twitches away, but he's frustrating me, just like you see in real life where even, you got a better car, but sometimes the dirtier, the nature of the circuit, it's hard to overtake straight away. We have to wait for this straight now as we use a bit of ERS, not too much left in the tank. We have to wait and use the rest of it as we enter the next straight. Get the move as we sail into the last corner, hit the apex, and then we're going to use the rest of the ERS to push away DRS open, and hopefully we're looking forwards rather than backwards as we now try and chase after Valtteri Bottas. Meanwhile, Leclerc making moves himself, looking to overtake Hamilton in the Mercedes. Leclerc up into P7, and whilst he does that, Pierre Gasly also making an overtake. He's still in this race. AlphaTauri is still there, but they've clearly lost a little bit of race pace. Gasly in P9, Tsunoda way down in P15, a massive difference from the end of last season. But remember, AlphaTauri started in this same fashion last season, and then look where Gasly was by the end of it. So let's not count them out, but it looks like the Honda powered teams have lost a bit of pace because Red Bull and AlphaTauri are a bit slow. But the thing is, AlphaTauri are seemingly still better than their kind of quote-unquote senior Red Bull team, so it may just be a Honda thing. But we move back to our POV anyway. Lap 27, looking to make a move on Bottas. Valtteri Bottas squeezes us to the right-hand side. He outbrakes us into turn 1. Oh, so close on the left-hand side there. The Finn defends well, but we're going to switch him, dummy him, and go round the outside. DRS available to us, and surely we'll get to the next apex before him. Yes, we do, and we make sure we shut down that corner, and we're up into P3, the last podium position. But Bottas is going to come back at us. He's got DRS open. We're a sitting duck. No DRS for us, remember. We're deploying all the ERS in the world, but all the ERS in the world won't help us because that Williams is so quick in a straight line, especially with DRS activated. Any car is, of course, nowadays in the My Team career mode with maxed out cars. But now we're behind him. We've got DRS ourselves. Can we make a move? A diving one to the inside. We're going to go for it on the second last lap. We've gone for the kamikaze dive, and it just hasn't worked out. The tyres just won't allow me to slow down the car. It was a bit of a rash, audacious move, but I'm kind of a little bit desperate here. I really want that podium to kick off this season, but Bottas gets it, and we were just a little bit too in a rush to make the overtake. And the thing is now, though, Bottas was correct. The mediums have started to wear out, and his hards are still perfectly fine. And because we're behind him now, we don't have that straight line. We don't have that track position. He's very quick in a straight line, even though we've got DRS, because now every corner, I'm not getting the same acceleration out of the corner as I was just about 2-3 laps ago, because the tyre wear is coming in, and that's allowing Bottas to just pull away enough that even with DRS, I'm not catching him by the time we get to the next brake zone. And you're going to see that here as we go on towards the last lap of the Grand Prix, really late on the brakes. We catch a bit of time in that last corner compared to Valtteri, but then out the last bend, look at that acceleration that he's got versus us, because the tyres just don't give the grip. We've got DRS, we're closing, but we're just nowhere near enough now to make a move, and that's all down to the hards versus the mediums as Leclerc makes a last lap overtake up into P6. That's a crucial little move to get some more points over Stroll. Gasly up into P8, having overtaken Lewis Hamilton. So Leclerc, maybe, he out-qualified us, but he's now behind us in the race. But I still think you can say Leclerc's had a very good debut race, getting to grips with a new car, just like myself. He's been in Ferrari for a lot of seasons now, so it's a big difference, I'm sure. So he's had a very solid race, I would say, in P6. But meanwhile, up in P1 and 2, Verstappen and George Russell. We haven't seen much of them in this last part of the race because they've just been way out in front. The one stop, once again, paying out massively at Bahrain. And it's going to be an amazing victory, maybe, for the Brit here, as we're now on the last lap of the Grand Prix. I'm trying my hardest to catch up to Bottas, but you can see it's no use. I don't have the pace anymore in the corners, and Bottas is going to maintain the P3. But here comes George Russell for his first ever win in Formula 1. Jumped ship from Alpine, joined McLaren alongside Lando Norris, and it's the correct decision because he's won a race straight away on his debut. Verstappen somehow drags that midfield Mercedes up into P2, and Bottas on their debut for Jaguar in F1 with the collaboration with Williams up into P3 on the podium. We just couldn't do it in the end, but it's still a very solid first race. A lot of learning has been done for sure, and we can work from here.
That's it for another spectacular Grand Prix here in Bahrain, and a real champion's drive to take the win. Anthony Davidson, what helped them deliver this result, do you think?
Well, when you overtake that many people, I'd certainly hope you'd win the race. Their car was really effective in the slipstream here today, and the team will be pleased that they didn't cook the engine, given how long they were spending in the hot air behind other cars. They had a lot of confidence to push their tyres hard as well, especially going into the corners, which allowed for some late braking and some exciting passes.
And look at that, they're making their way out onto the podium now. Great race from the McLaren team, and I'm really happy to see them there on the top step of the podium.
That is a very weird sight to see Russell in a McLaren outfit, nay, even a Golf McLaren outfit, but he's done it. P1 for the Brit. Verstappen, though, as ever, his AI is so highly rated he can drag a Mercedes that clearly isn't a top car anymore these days up into P2 with good strategy. Bottas and myself, very closely contested, but he comes out on top just about. The hard tyre option being the better one, it would seem, by the end of the Grand Prix. But as I said, I think it's a solid race for myself and Leclerc. We've learned a lot about the car, the tyres this season as well. Clearly, maybe the mediums, at least at Bahrain, weren't as consistent as I was hoping. So, I don't know, maybe this season is the season where you use the hard compound a bit more. I don't know. But McLaren start off strong. We're in P2, Mercedes, Williams, and how the mighty fall, Red Bull and Ferrari behind Alpine even, because Alpine scored 1 point with Ocon, and Aston Martin scored more points than AlphaTauri. So big surprises. Like I said, Bahrain's always a funny one for a first outing in the season with the one stop v the two stop. But what a, great first outing. A lot of drama, chaos, great racing as well. Guys, if you did enjoy that, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, and let me know if you're excited for the rest of this season. Just to let you guys know, also, FYI, compared to the last season and previous ones, we're going to be uploading the start of the season a little bit slower to try and eke it out, just to make sure I time it correctly with obviously the next year, the next half of the year, looking ahead all the way to the next game release. So expect maybe only one episode a week of this series for the next kind of couple rounds, and then we'll start to ramp up the upload frequency again. Hope you guys understand, just timing it a little bit better for the rest of the next half of the year, for the end of the game cycle. But if you're new around here, do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.